Hello everyone. In this video today, I'm going to teach you how to use cocoapods to manage the dependencies in your project. And also we're going to use a third-party framework called Alamofire to make HTTP requests. Normally, we're going to have many frameworks out there that makes it easier for us to do our job. Alamofire is one of them. Instead of having to write all this code to make a request, you could just use this third-party framework and easily implement the code. So first of all, if you don't know how to install cocoapods, I'm gonna leave a link in the description on how to do it. And if you don't have cocoapods installed right now, pause the video, go ahead and install it. And after you install it, all you have to do is go to the terminal and you go inside the folder that you create your project. And you do a pod init. After doing that, if you go to your project folder, you see that you're going to have a pod file. Here is where you're going to put all the dependencies for your project. For example, for now, we're going to use Alamofire. So if you go to the GitHub, you have all the information about Alamofire. They teach you how to do the HTTP request, many other functionalities they have for downloading images, and much more. So all we need here is to copy these so you can install using cocoapods. Then you can go back to your folder and go to the pod file and you place the framework there. And save the file. After saving the file, you can go back to the terminal and use pod install. And it's going to install all the dependencies that you put there in your pod file. After doing that, if it's the first time that you're using cocoapods, you should close your project and reopen, because after using cocoapods, it's going to create a new workspace for you. So instead of using your Xcode project now, you use the XC workspace. And when you open your XC workspace, you will see that you're going to have your project, and here it's going to also have a list of frameworks that you are using. So in this case, we have now installed Alamofire. Now we can go back to the project that we were implementing before for HTTP request. And if you don't have this project, I'm going to leave the link in the description. That's the project that we implemented last video. So here, to use that Alamofire, you just import it, Alamofire. And instead of doing all this code, we can do af.request, and here we can pass the URL, and then we can do response JSON. So they do all the mapping. If you wanted a string, you could get a string. In this case, we want a JSON, so we can just use JSON response. So here we have our response. Here you're gonna check if the response was successful or it was a failure. So you just have to use a switch response.result case success let JSON. So here in this case, we're going to have the JSON, and case failure, we're gonna have an error message. So this situation here, we're just gonna print it, the error, print error.localize description. And in JSON, first thing we wanna make sure is, because the response can be anything, we have to make sure it's the type that we're looking for, that's JSON file. So let's say word let JSON data equals JSON as string any, else return. So here we are making sure that JSON is a JSON data, and now we can actually access that data. So let activity equals JSON data with the type activity as string, and let type equals JSON data type also as a string. So here we have the values again, and as we did previously, we can just copy that value and set it to our label. So we can remove all this code now. So you can see that's way easier to just use Alamofire than trying to implement URL session by yourself. If we run this app, we should see the same result as before. So here we have our app. If I press request data, after a few seconds, I should have the data present. Yes. So we have the same result with way less code. We don't have to map it to JSON. The Alamofire is doing that for us. We could also have like a response as a string if we want to just present a text. So yeah, there are multiple functionalities implemented with it. And with that, we also learn how to use cocoapods. And if you need other frameworks, you can just add them here and go to the terminal and use pod install, and you're gonna have all your frameworks installed and ready to use. That's all for today. Thank you so much.